the richest man in the world, the founder of Tesla, the visionary behind SpaceX. Everyone knows Elon Musk, but does anyone know the dark roots of his story? The story I'm about to tell you today is not an ordinary success story. This is a child's struggle for survival, a young man's fear of losing everything, and a man's stubbornness to achieve what the whole world calls impossible. Picture this: a 10-year-old boy lying in a hospital bed, his face so swollen his own father can't recognize him. Fast forward 2 decades. That same boy is standing in a factory, sleeping on the floor, with only days left before his company goes bankrupt. And then, imagine him today, the wealthiest person on Earth, sending rockets to space and revolutionizing the car industry. How did this happen? What happened in between? And more importantly, what price did he pay? Are you ready? Because the real story of Elon Musk is much more painful, much more dramatic, and much more inspiring than you think. But before we dive deep into this incredible journey, if you enjoy stories about the hidden lives of famous people, the struggles they faced before becoming legends, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. It really helps us bring you more incredible untold stories like this one. Trust me, you won't want to miss what comes next. Now, let's begin. 1971, South Africa, Pretoria. One of the darkest periods of the apartheid regime. A time when the color of your skin determined your entire life. A time when injustice was the law, and the law was injustice. In one of the city's wealthy neighborhoods, in a magnificent mansion designed by the famous architect Herbert Baker, a baby is born. Elon Reeve Musk, his father, Errol Musk, was an electromechanical engineer and property developer. His mother, May, was a Canadian-born model and dietitian. On paper, it looked perfect. A wealthy family, a big house with 8 bedrooms, servants, a tennis court, a private chef, everything a child could want. But it won't take long for young Elon to learn that wealth doesn't always bring happiness. In fact, sometimes it brings the exact opposite. Elon's parents divorced when he was just 8 years old. And here's where the story takes a dark turn. Most children would choose to live with their mother, but Elon made a different choice. He chose to live with his father. Why? Because he felt sorry for him. He thought his father would be lonely. But this decision, this one choice made by an 8-year-old child, would haunt him for years to come. Decades later, in interviews, Elon would describe his father as one of the most difficult people he's ever known. He would say that almost every terrible thing you could think of, his father has done. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's go back to young Elon, the boy who was different from everyone else. When Elon was 9 years old, he did something extraordinary, something that would foreshadow his entire future. He read the entire Encyclopedia Britannica, not just parts of it, not just the interesting sections, the entire thing, every page, every word. Yes, you heard that right. At 9 years old, while other kids were playing video games and watching cartoons, Elon was absorbing all the knowledge of the world into his head. History, science, geography, technology, everything. His siblings would ask him questions, any questions, and he would have the answers. His family started calling him a walking encyclopedia. But this incredible ability came with a price. It made him even more lonely. You see, when you're a child who knows more than most adults, when you can discuss quantum physics while your classmates are talking about toys, you don't fit in. You become an outsider, an alien in your own world. While his friends wanted to play games with him, he was talking about the laws of thermodynamics. While his classmates played soccer and rugby, he was writing computer code, lost in the world of zeros and ones. Elon once said in an interview that he would often get lost in his thoughts so deeply that people thought he was deaf. His parents even took him to doctors to have his adenoids removed, thinking there was something wrong with his hearing. But there was nothing wrong with his ears. He was just somewhere else. Somewhere in his mind, building worlds that didn't exist yet. And then, the torture began. Elon's school years were not just difficult, they were a living nightmare. The kind of nightmare that leaves scars, both physical and mental. In the brutal social hierarchy of South African schools during apartheid, being different was dangerous. Being smart was dangerous. Being quiet and lost in your own thoughts, that made you a target. The bullying was so severe, so relentless, that it's hard to even describe. This wasn't just name-calling or teasing. This was violence. Real, physical violence. One day, everything reached a breaking point. Elon was in school, probably thinking about some complex problem, some equation, some code. He wasn't bothering anyone. But that didn't matter. A group of boys surrounded him. They didn't like him. Maybe they were jealous of his intelligence. Maybe they just enjoyed hurting someone weaker. The reason doesn't really matter. They attacked him as a group. They pushed him. Then they threw him down a concrete staircase. And when he was on the ground, unable to defend himself, they didn't stop. They kicked him. They punched him. They beat him so badly that he lost consciousness. When Elon woke up, he was in Santon Clinic Hospital. His face was unrecognizable, swollen beyond belief, bruised, broken. His father, Elon Musk, rushed to the hospital. But when he walked into the room and saw the boy lying in the bed, he didn't recognize him. This wasn't his son. This couldn't be his son. The face was too damaged, too swollen. For a moment, Errol thought he was in the wrong room, but it was Elon. And he spent 2 weeks in that hospital bed, healing from injuries that would stay with him forever. Not just the physical scars, though those remained, but something deeper, something in his soul. The worst part? Neither the school nor the police cared about the matter. No investigation. No consequences for the boys who did this. Nothing. Because in South Africa during that time, in the brutal world of apartheid, the strong won and the weak were crushed. That was just how life worked. Being weak, being different, meant you deserved what happened to you. Elon later said that he grew up in an extremely violent environment. From age 6 to 16, violence was just part of life. He got into real hardcore street fights. He got beaten up really badly in several of them. South Africa was, in his words, a very violent place. But here's the thing. Here's what most people don't understand about Elon Musk. Every punch didn't break him. It made him stronger. Every time he was knocked down, he got back up more determined. Every failure, every beating, every humiliation, it all became fuel. Something was changing in Elon's mind. A fire was being lit. A fire that would eventually burn so bright, it would illuminate the entire world. But before that fire could change the world, it had to keep him warm through the cold, lonely years of his childhood. In 1983, when Elon was just 12 years old, something happened that would change everything. He got his hands on a Commodore VIC-20 computer. It came with a user manual for programming. The manual said it would take about 6 months to learn the basic programming language. Elon finished it in 3 days. 3 days of no sleep, no food, just pure focus. Just him and the machine, learning to speak to each other. And once he learned to code, he couldn't stop. He had found his escape, his sanctuary. When he was writing code, the bullies disappeared. The loneliness disappeared. There was just him and the infinite possibilities of creation. For 5 months, he locked himself in his room. His family barely saw him. He was building something, creating something, proving something. And finally, he emerged with a finished product, a space-themed video game called Blastar. It was simple by today's standards, a basic shooter game. But for a 12-year-old who taught himself programming in 3 days, it was a masterpiece. He didn't just create the game for fun. He wanted to see if it was real, if he could actually do something that mattered. So he sent the code to a South African magazine called PC and Office Technology. And they published it. They actually published it. And they paid him $500 for it. Now, $500 might not sound like much. But for 12-year-old Elon, it wasn't about the money. It was about validation. For the first time in his life, someone recognized his work. Someone saw what he could do. Someone said, yes, you matter. Yes, you created something valuable. This was the moment. The exact moment when Elon Musk realized that he didn't have to be a victim. He could be a creator. Years later, a Google software engineer would recreate Blastar as a playable HTML5 game so people could experience Musk's first creation. It's still out there on the internet. A 12-year-old's dream, preserved in code. But that 12-year-old wasn't done dreaming. Not even close. As Elon grew older, the violence around him didn't stop. South Africa, in the 80s, was a powder keg. The apartheid regime was in its final, most brutal phase. Elon and his brother Kimball would travel around Johannesburg, sometimes ending up in dangerous situations. There were concerts, underground anti-apartheid concerts. Music was one of the few ways people could express their resistance. But getting to these concerts meant traveling through dangerous areas, taking trains where violence was common. Elon later described moments that sounded like something out of a war zone, walking past dead bodies, seeing knife wounds, witnessing brutality that no teenager should ever see. But through it all, he held on to one thing, one dream, one goal: get out. By the time Elon Musk turned 17, he had made his decision. He couldn't stay in South Africa. He wouldn't stay. There were too many reasons to leave and no reasons to stay. First, there was the mandatory military service. Every young white man in South Africa had to serve in the military, and that military was being used to enforce apartheid, to oppress people, to perpetuate a system that Elon fundamentally disagreed with. He refused. He would not be part of that machine. Second, there was ambition, real ambition, the kind of ambition that couldn't be contained in Pretoria or Johannesburg. Elon knew that the real future, the real opportunities, were somewhere else. America. That was the dream, the land of Silicon Valley, the land where technology was being born, where the internet was beginning to change everything. But you couldn't just fly from South Africa to America. Immigration laws were strict. He needed a stepping stone. Canada. His mother was born in Canada, which meant he could claim Canadian citizenship. It was a way out, a door that was slightly open. So in 1989, 17-year-old Elon Musk packed a single suitcase. Inside were a few books, some clothes, and dreams that were far too big to fit in any bag. He said goodbye to his family, to his home, to everything he had ever known. And he left. Just like that. A teenager with no real money, no connections, and no safety net. He arrived in Canada in June 1989 and connected with a second cousin in Saskatchewan. And then, reality hit him hard. There were no opportunities waiting for him, no red carpet, no easy path to success, just hard work. The kind of work that breaks most people. He worked on a farm, shoveling grain in over 100-degree heat. He worked at a lumber mill, one of the most dangerous jobs you can have. He cleaned boilers, crawling through tunnels that were barely big enough to fit a human body, removing toxic residue. This was the life of the future billionaire, covered in dirt, covered in sweat, barely making enough money to survive. He lived with relatives. He moved from place to place. Sometimes he didn't know where his next meal would come from, but he never gave up, because he knew this was temporary. This was just the beginning. In 1990, Elon enrolled at Queen's University in Ontario. He studied physics and economics, but more importantly, he was getting closer to his real goal. After 2 years at Queen's, he transferred to the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia. Finally, he was in America. The dream was becoming real. At Penn, Elon double-majored in physics and economics. He graduated in 1997 with both degrees, but even before graduating, he was already thinking about what came next. He got accepted into a PhD program at Stanford University, one of the most prestigious universities in the world, a materials science program that would have led to a comfortable academic career. He moved to California. He started the program, and then after just 2 days, he dropped out. Why? Because it was 1995, and something was happening. Something big. The internet was exploding. Netscape had just gone public with a valuation of nearly $3 billion. Elon saw what was happening. He saw that the world was changing, right now, in real time. And he knew that if he stayed in a PhD program for the next 5 years, he would miss it. He would miss the revolution. So he made a choice. He walked away from Stanford, from the safety of academia, from the traditional path to success. He chose the uncertain path, the risky path, the path that most people thought was crazy. And this is where the real story begins. 1995, Silicon Valley. The year the internet was born. The year that would change everything. And the year that Elon Musk's dreams would start turning into reality. But success doesn't come without pain, without sacrifice, without coming face to face with failure over and over again. And Elon was about to learn this the hard way. He started brainstorming with his brother Kimball. What could they build? What problem could they solve? They didn't have much money. They didn't have connections. They didn't have investors lined up. But they had an idea. Newspapers were dying. Everyone knew it. Print circulation was dropping. But newspapers had valuable information, business directories, maps, local information. What if they could take all of that and put it online? That was the idea behind Zip2, an online city guide, a way for newspapers to have a digital presence, a bridge between the old world of print and the new world of the internet. They pitched the idea to investors. They got rejected, again and again and again. Nobody wanted to invest in two young guys with no experience, no track record, and an unproven idea. So Elon and Kimball made a decision. They would do it themselves. They would bootstrap the company with their own money. Elon had $2,000 in his bank account. That was it. Kimball had a bit more from selling his share in a college pro painters franchise. And their father, Errol, loaned them $28,000 to get started. That was their entire budget. $30,000 to build a company that would compete with giants. They rented a tiny office in Palo Alto. It was barely bigger than a closet, but it was theirs, and it became their entire world. Here's the thing that most people don't know about the early days of Zip2. Elon and Kimball didn't just work there. They lived there. Because they couldn't afford to rent an apartment and pay for an office, they had to choose. And they chose the office. They bought 2 futons. They slept on the floor. They showered at the local YMCA just a few blocks away. They ate the cheapest food they could find, usually just fast food, or whatever was on sale at the grocery store. Elon worked around the clock, literally. During the day, the website had to be live because they were already signing up businesses. So Elon coded at night, all night, 7 days a week. No breaks, no weekends, no holidays. He later said that he was in such a zone, so focused on building the company, that he barely remembers those early months. It was just code, sleep for a few hours, wake up, write more code, repeat. At one point, Elon briefly had a girlfriend, but the only way she could spend time with him was to come to the office. And if she wanted to stay overnight, she had to sleep on the futon next to him while he kept coding. Was it romantic? Absolutely not. Was it sustainable? Definitely not. But this was the price of building something from nothing. This was the price of turning a dream into reality. Slowly, painfully, Zip2 started to grow. They signed their first clients, local newspapers who wanted to have an online presence. The software worked. People were using it. Revenue started coming in. But as the company grew, something else happened. Something that Elon wasn't prepared for. The venture capitalists came knocking. More Davidoff Ventures saw potential in Zip2 and offered to invest. This was good news, right? Money to hire real engineers, money to scale, money to grow faster. But there was a catch. There's always a catch. The investors looked at 24-year-old Elon Musk and said, "You're too young. You're too inexperienced. You can't be CEO of this company. We're bringing in someone with real experience." And just like that, Elon was demoted in his own company. The company he founded, the company he bled for. He was made Chief Technology Officer while someone named Rich Sorkin was brought in as CEO. How did Elon react? He was furious. He fought against it. He argued. But in the end, he had no choice. The investors held the power. Either accept the demotion or lose the funding and watch the company die. So he accepted it. But he didn't accept it quietly. Elon had a reputation in those early days. He was demanding. He was difficult to work with. He micromanaged everything. When the new engineers rewrote his code to make it more efficient, Elon would come back at night and rewrite it again, his way, without telling anyone. The employees found him impossible. But Elon didn't care about being liked. He cared about the vision. He cared about making it work. And it did work. By 1998, Zip2 had partnerships with about 160 newspapers. They had deals with the New York Times, Knight Ridder, and Hearst Corporation. The company was valued at hundreds of millions of dollars. Then came the offers. Big companies wanted to buy Zip2. There were talks of mergers, acquisitions, different strategies. The board wanted to merge with a company called CitySearch. Elon fought against it. He wanted to stay independent, to keep growing. But he lost that fight too. The board overruled him. However, at the last minute, something changed. The merger fell through, and instead, a better offer came in. In February 1999, Compaq Computer Corporation offered to buy Zip2 for $307 million in cash. $307 million. For a company that started with $30,000 and two guys sleeping on futons, the board accepted immediately. The deal was done. And Elon Musk, at just 27 years old, received $22 million for his 7% share of the company. $22 million. Most people would retire with that kind of money. Buy a mansion, buy cars, travel the world, live in luxury for the rest of their lives. But not Elon, because for him, Zip2 wasn't a success story. It was a failure. Not a financial failure, obviously, but a personal one. He had lost control of his own company. He had been pushed aside, demoted, overruled at every turn. The vision he had for Zip2, the potential he saw, it never fully materialized because he wasn't in charge, and he swore to himself, never again. Next time, he would maintain control. Next time, he would build something so big, so revolutionary, that nobody could push him aside. But first, he needed to celebrate, just a little bit. He bought himself a McLaren F1, one of the fastest cars in the world. It cost over $1 million. He drove it around Silicon Valley, feeling the speed, feeling the power, feeling like maybe, just maybe, he had earned this. But the celebration was short, because Elon's mind was already racing to the next idea, the next company, the next revolution, and this time it would be even bigger. In March 1999, just 1 month after selling Zip2, Elon invested $12 million of his own money into a new venture. He called it X.com. And the vision was audacious. He wanted to create the future of banking, online financial services, digital money, email payments, everything. People thought he was crazy. An online bank? Who would trust their money to a website? This was 1999. Most people were still figuring out how to use email. Online shopping was brand new. And here was Elon saying, "Send us your money. Trust us. We'll keep it safe on the internet." But Elon had a strategy. X.com launched with aggressive promotions. Sign up and get $20 for free. Refer a friend and get more money. Make banking easy, instant, with no fees. And it worked. In the first few months of operation, over 200,000 customers joined X.com. The growth was explosive. Money was pouring in, both from customers and from investors who saw the potential. Elon was CEO. He was in control. This was his company, his vision, and nobody was going to push him aside this time. But then, reality set in. Again. The investors looked at Elon and said the same thing they said at Zip2. "You're inexperienced. You're not the right person to lead this. We're bringing in someone else." By the end of 1999, Elon was replaced as CEO by Bill Harris, the former CEO of Intuit. Once again, Elon was pushed aside in his own company. But the story wasn't over, not even close. In the year 2000, X.com merged with a competitor called Confinity. Confinity had a product that was more popular than X.com's services. It was called PayPal, a simple way to send money to anyone with an email address. After the merger, Elon returned as CEO of the combined company. Finally, he was back in control, but almost immediately, there was conflict. Elon wanted to use Microsoft software for the infrastructure. Most of the engineering team, including Confinity co-founder Peter Thiel, wanted to use Unix-based systems. The debate became heated. It became personal. The company was split. Half the employees supported Elon. Half supported Thiel. It was a civil war inside a startup. And in civil wars, there are casualties. Peter Thiel resigned. The board was in chaos. And in September 2000, while Elon was on his honeymoon, the board held a secret meeting. They voted him out. Again. For the second time in his career, Elon was fired from his own company. Peter Thiel became CEO. The company refocused entirely on PayPal, dropping the X.com brand, and under Thiel's leadership, they prepared for an IPO. In February 2002, PayPal went public. And in October of that same year, eBay bought PayPal for $1.5 billion in stock. Elon Musk, as the largest shareholder with 11.72% of the company, received $176 million. $176 million at age 30, after being fired twice. After being told he wasn't good enough to lead his own companies, most people would take that money and disappear, enjoy life, relax. But Elon Musk wasn't wired that way. He couldn't relax. He couldn't stop, because he had something to prove, not to the world, to himself. And he was about to make two decisions that would define the rest of his life. Two decisions that everyone told him were suicidal. Two decisions that had a less than 10% chance of success. He was going to build rockets, and he was going to build electric cars. Two of the hardest, most expensive, most likely to fail industries in the world. His friends tried to talk him out of it. One friend even compiled a video of rockets exploding and made Elon watch it. "Look at this," his friend said. "This is what happens. You're going to lose all your money. You're going to fail. Please, don't do this." But Elon didn't listen, because failure didn't scare him anymore. He had already been knocked down so many times. What was one more time? In June 2002, Elon founded Space Exploration Technologies Corporation, SpaceX. The goal was simple but impossible. Reduce the cost of space travel. Make it possible to go to Mars. Make humanity a multiplanetary species. Everyone said it was impossible. NASA had struggled for decades. Private companies had tried and failed. The biggest aerospace companies in the world, with unlimited resources, could barely make it work. And here was Elon, with no experience in aerospace, saying he could do it better, faster, and cheaper. He invested $100 million of his own money into SpaceX. That was his entire fortune from PayPal, minus what he needed for his next venture. Because at the same time he was starting SpaceX, he was also investing in another crazy idea: electric cars. A company called Tesla Motors had just been founded by Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarpenning. They had a vision for a high-performance electric sports car. Elon invested $6.35 million in Tesla's Series A funding round in 2004. He became chairman of the board and the largest shareholder. He wasn't CEO yet, but he was deeply involved in product design and strategy. So now Elon had two companies, both in industries where failure was almost guaranteed. Both burning through money at an incredible rate. Both facing challenges that seemed insurmountable. SpaceX's plan was to build a rocket called Falcon 1. It would be the first privately developed liquid fuel rocket to reach orbit. If they could do that, it would prove that private space travel was possible. It would change everything. But first, they had to actually build the rocket. And then they had to launch it. And then it had to work. Elon sent his entire team to Amalek Island, a tiny speck of land in the Pacific Ocean that the U.S. military had used for missile testing. This would be the launch site. This would be where they proved everyone wrong. March 24, 2006, the first Falcon 1 launch. Years of work, millions of dollars. Everything was riding on this moment. The rocket launched. It lifted off the pad. It was working. 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds. And then, at 33 seconds, the engine failed. The rocket lost control. It crashed back to Earth in a massive fireball. Failure. Complete, total, expensive failure. But Elon didn't quit. They analyzed what went wrong. They fixed the problems. They built another rocket. And they tried again. March 2007. Second launch attempt. This time, the rocket made it past the first stage. It was working. Higher and higher. But then, during stage separation, something went wrong. The rocket started tumbling. It broke apart. Another failure. Elon had now spent over $60 million on two failed launches. Investors were getting nervous. The media was calling SpaceX a joke, but Elon pushed forward. August 2008, third launch attempt. Surely, this time, it would work. Surely, they had fixed all the problems. The rocket launched. First stage worked perfectly. Second stage ignited. Everything was going well. And then, just before reaching orbit, the two stages collided during separation. The rocket was destroyed. 3 launches. 3 failures. Elon had now spent almost all of his money. SpaceX was running on fumes. The company was days away from bankruptcy. And it wasn't just SpaceX that was in trouble. Tesla was also on the verge of collapse. The Roadster production was a disaster. Manufacturing delays. Quality problems. Money burning at a rate of $4 million per month. Then came the 2008 financial crisis, the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. Banks were failing. The stock market was crashing. General Motors and Chrysler, 2 of the biggest car companies in America, filed for bankruptcy. And here was Elon trying to build rockets and electric cars in the middle of an economic apocalypse. He had $30 million left. That was it. The last of his fortune. And he had to make a choice that would determine everything. Save SpaceX or save Tesla. He couldn't save both. There wasn't enough money. If he split the money, both companies would probably die. If he focused on one, at least one might survive. Everyone told him to choose. Pick one, let the other one die. That's the smart play. That's the rational decision. But Elon didn't choose. He split the money. $15 million to SpaceX, $15 million to Tesla. He gave both companies a chance, knowing that it probably meant both would fail. He later said that he came very close to a nervous breakdown during this time. He never thought he was the type of person who could break. But in 2008, he almost did. He was getting divorced from his first wife, Justine. A brutal public divorce with a custody battle over their 5 children. He was being attacked in the media. His companies were failing. He was almost out of money. He couldn't sleep. When he did sleep, he had nightmares. He would wake up screaming, in physical pain from the stress. This was the lowest point of Elon Musk's life. Lower than the bullying in South Africa. Lower than sleeping in the Zip2 office. Lower than being fired from his own companies. This was rock bottom. And the next few months would determine if he would ever climb back out. September 28, 2008. SpaceX's 4th launch attempt. The absolute last chance. If this failed, the company would go bankrupt. All the employees would lose their jobs. Everything Elon had worked for would be gone. The tension was unbearable. The rocket sat on the launch pad. The countdown began, and everyone held their breath. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. The rocket launched. First stage worked perfectly. Stage separation successful. Second stage ignited. The rocket kept climbing. Higher, higher, faster, faster. And then, finally, after 9 minutes, Falcon 1 reached orbit. Success. After 3 failures. After years of work. After $100 million. After being laughed at by the entire aerospace industry, SpaceX had done it. They were the first private company in history to launch a liquid fuel rocket into Earth's orbit. The first private company to prove that commercial spaceflight was possible. Elon later said that if that 4th launch had failed, that was it. SpaceX would have been done. There was no money for a 5th attempt. But it worked, and that success saved everything. Just weeks later, in December 2008, NASA announced that they were awarding SpaceX a $1.6 billion contract to deliver cargo to the International Space Station. $1.6 billion. Suddenly, SpaceX went from nearly bankrupt to having a guaranteed future. The company was saved, but Tesla was still dying, and Elon was still running out of money. Fast. December 23, 2008. 2 days before Christmas, Tesla needed $40 million immediately, or the company would go bankrupt. Investors were hesitant. The economy was in shambles. Nobody wanted to invest in an electric car company during a recession. Elon spent that entire day on the phone, calling investors, begging, pleading, explaining the vision, promising that Tesla would survive. Finally, on Christmas Eve, he closed the deal. $40 million in new funding. The signatures were completed just in time. 2 days later, Tesla would have been bankrupt. But that phone call saved it. Years later, Elon would describe 2008 as the worst year of his life. Both companies nearly died. His marriage ended. He almost went bankrupt personally. He borrowed money from friends just to pay his rent. But he survived. And not just survived. He came back stronger. Over the next few years, SpaceX continued to succeed. They won more NASA contracts. They developed the Falcon 9 rocket. They created the Dragon spacecraft. And most importantly, they started landing rockets. In 2015, SpaceX successfully landed the first stage of a Falcon 9 rocket. They proved that rockets could be reusable. This was a game changer. Instead of throwing away millions of dollars of hardware after every launch, they could land the rocket and use it again. The aerospace industry said it was impossible. Elon did it anyway. Tesla also turned around. The Roadster eventually went into production. Then came the Model S sedan, which won every possible award. Then the Model X SUV. Then the Model 3, the affordable electric car that finally brought Tesla to the mass market. But the Model 3 production was its own nightmare. Elon called it production hell. The company couldn't manufacture the cars fast enough. Quality problems plagued the early models. Once again, Tesla came close to bankruptcy. Elon moved into the Tesla factory in Nevada. He slept on a cot on the factory floor. He worked 120-hour weeks. He personally went through the production line, fixing robots, redesigning processes, solving problems that his engineers couldn't solve. He later said that period almost killed him. The stress, the lack of sleep, the constant pressure. But he didn't quit. He couldn't quit. Too many people were depending on him. Thousands of employees. Millions of customers who had pre-ordered the Model 3. Investors who believed in the vision. And most importantly, the future itself. Because if Tesla failed, the electric car revolution might have died with it. And somehow, impossibly, Tesla survived. Again. By 2018, the Model 3 became the best-selling electric car of all time. Tesla's stock price soared. The company went from nearly bankrupt to being worth hundreds of billions of dollars. Today, in 2025, Tesla is the most valuable car company in the world. More valuable than Toyota, Volkswagen, and General Motors combined. The company that almost died multiple times is now leading the entire automotive industry into the electric future. And SpaceX? They've launched over 200 missions. They've sent astronauts to the International Space Station. They've deployed thousands of Starlink satellites, bringing internet to remote parts of the world. They've developed Starship, the largest and most powerful rocket ever built, designed to take humans to Mars. The two companies that everyone said were impossible, that had less than a 10% chance of success, are now two of the most important companies in the world. But Elon didn't stop there. In 2016, he co-founded Neuralink, a company developing brain-computer interfaces. The goal is to help people with paralysis and eventually enhance human cognition, to allow humans to merge with artificial intelligence. That same year, he founded The Boring Company to build underground transportation tunnels. Because sitting in traffic is inefficient, and Elon hates inefficiency. In 2022, he acquired Twitter for $44 billion and renamed it X. His vision is to turn it into an everything app. Banking, payments, social media, all in one place. The vision he had for X.com back in 1999 finally coming to life over 2 decades later. And in 2023, he founded xAI, an artificial intelligence company, because he believes AI is the most important technology of our lifetime, and he wants to ensure it's developed safely. Today, Elon Musk's net worth is approximately $500 billion. $500 billion. He is the wealthiest person in the world, and he's using that wealth to pursue the most ambitious goals humanity has ever attempted. Make life multiplanetary. Transition the world to sustainable energy. Connect the human brain to computers. Build the future of artificial intelligence. These aren't just business goals. These are civilization-level challenges. And Elon truly believes he can solve them. But here's what you need to remember. Here's the real story beneath all the billions and the rockets and the headlines. Elon Musk didn't come from money. Yes, his family was comfortable in South Africa, but he didn't inherit a fortune. He didn't get a trust fund. He didn't have connections in Silicon Valley. He came from a place of violence and loneliness. He was beaten so badly he spent weeks in a hospital. He was told he was too young, too inexperienced, too different. He was fired from his own companies. Twice, he slept on floors. He showered at the YMCA. He came within days of bankruptcy. Multiple times. He worked so hard he almost broke, physically and mentally. Every single thing he achieved he had to fight for. Nothing was given. Everything was earned through pain, through failure, through getting back up every single time he was knocked down. And that's the real lesson of Elon Musk's story. It's not about being the smartest person in the room, though he certainly is brilliant. It's not about having the best ideas, though his ideas have changed the world. It's about perseverance. It's about getting punched in the face, literally and figuratively, and deciding that you're not done yet. It's about failing 3 times and trying a 4th time anyway. It's about splitting your last $30 million between 2 dying companies because you refuse to give up on either one. It's about having a vision so strong, so clear, that no amount of criticism, no amount of doubt, no amount of failure can make you abandon it. When everyone said rockets are too expensive, Elon made them reusable. When everyone said electric cars will never work, Elon made them cool and profitable. When everyone said it's impossible, Elon said, "Watch me." And that's why his story matters. Not because he's rich, not because he's famous, but because he proves that the impossible is just the difficult waiting to be conquered. You don't need to be born into wealth. You don't need to have perfect parents. You don't need to avoid failure. In fact, you need to embrace failure. Learn from it. Use it as fuel. Elon Musk read an encyclopedia at age 9 because he was lonely and books were his escape. He created a video game at age 12 because programming gave him control when everything else in his life was chaos. He left South Africa at 17 because he refused to be part of a system he disagreed with. He founded Zip2 in his 20s and turned a $30,000 investment into $300 million. He founded X.com and turned it into PayPal, worth $1.5 billion. He founded SpaceX when everyone said he'd fail, and now they're landing rockets and planning trips to Mars. He invested in Tesla when electric cars were a joke, and now they're the future of transportation. Every step of the way, people doubted him. Investors fired him. The media mocked him. Competitors dismissed him. And every single time, he proved them wrong. Not immediately, not easily. But eventually, inevitably, he proved them wrong. So here's the question for you. Right now, today, what's your impossible? What's the thing you want to do but everyone says you can't? What's the dream you've been too scared to chase because the odds are against you? Maybe you want to start a company but you don't have money. Elon started with $2,000. Maybe you want to change industries but you don't have experience. Elon went from software to rockets to cars to brain implants. Maybe you're afraid of failure. Elon failed more times than most people even try. The only real difference between Elon Musk and everyone else isn't intelligence or resources or luck. It's this. When he fails, he doesn't stop. When he gets knocked down, he gets back up. When everyone says it's impossible, he hears it as a challenge. And you can do the same thing. Not everyone will become a billionaire. Not everyone will send rockets to space. But everyone can choose to not give up. Everyone can decide that their dreams are worth fighting for. Everyone can take that first step, even when they're terrified. Elon Musk's story isn't finished. He's 54 years old, and he's still building, still innovating, still pushing the boundaries of what's possible. Mars missions, neural implants, artificial intelligence, sustainable energy. He's playing the longest game imaginable, trying to secure the future of human civilization itself. Will he succeed at everything? Probably not. He'll face more failures, more setbacks, more moments where everything looks hopeless. But if his past is any indication, he'll keep fighting. He'll keep building. He'll keep believing that the impossible is just a problem that hasn't been solved yet. And maybe, just maybe, that's the real superpower. Not intelligence, not money, not connections, just an unshakable belief that you can change the world, paired with the willingness to work harder than anyone else to make it happen. That's the story of Elon Musk. From a bullied child in Pretoria to the wealthiest person on Earth. From sleeping on office floors to building the future in factories and launch pads around the world. From loneliness to billions. From pain to victory. From impossible to inevitable. And the most important part? His story proves that your story can be extraordinary too. You just have to be willing to fight for it, to fail for it, to sacrifice for it, and to never ever give up on it. So if this story inspired you, if it made you think about your own dreams and your own potential, I want you to do something for me. Hit that subscribe button right now. Give this video a thumbs up. And drop a comment below telling me, who do you want to hear about next? What other famous person has a hidden story that the world needs to know? Because this channel is all about uncovering the real stories behind the legends, the struggles before the success, the failures before the victories, the humanity behind the headlines. And I promise you, there are so many more incredible stories to tell. Stories that will inspire you, shock you, and maybe even change how you see your own life and your own possibilities. So subscribe, hit that notification bell, and join me on this journey through the untold stories of the world's most fascinating people. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being here. And remember, the next Elon Musk, the next person who changes the world, could be you. If you're willing to fight for it, I'll see you in the next video. Until then, keep dreaming, keep building, and keep believing that your impossible is possible.